Hi there, I'm Danny Flexen. Welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut ReFLEXions. I'm here every Monday at 4:30 PM to look back on the boxing action over the weekend. But as boxing is currently on pause in the UK until the end of January, and with all due respect to Mark Magsayo's great victory over the weekend, which we have covered in depth on the channel, this week and for the past few weeks I've been switching tack and looking at some more general subjects. And this week a report came out in the Daily Telegraph yesterday saying that Anthony Joshua, despite negotiating for quite some time with Oleksandr Usyk for their rematch in the spring, is now open, and no one's quoted from Joshua or his management team in the piece, I should point that out, but he's now open to taking substantial step-aside money to allow an undisputed world heavyweight title fight to take place between Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. A lot of people criticised the report almost immediately, mainly by saying that if Joshua is willing to accept step-aside money, it'll be a lot more than £15 million that he would ask for. That aside, I just wanted to have a quick look at the two fighters who would have to take step-aside money for the undisputed fight to proceed, that being Dillian Whyte, the WBC mandatory challenger, and Joshua, who has his contracted rematch with Usyk lined up, and whether they should do it or not. We'll start with Joshua because he is reportedly the one who is now willing to accept the money, and I think he should do it. I think he was comprehensively beaten by Usyk. It wasn't, a big shot that rocked his world like against Andy Ruiz Jr., from which he never fully recovered. He was comprehensively dominated in the fight with Usyk. He needs more time, perhaps even interim fights, to get his confidence back up, to make the necessary tactical adjustments to stand a good chance in their rematch. I think also he still hasn't confirmed his new training setup. We know it seems very likely now, as I spoke about last week, that he'll move on from Rob McCracken and join a new team, perhaps in the US. That's something he'll have to get used to, relocating, basing himself somewhere else for training, getting used to a new team, new training methods, different tactics for the rematch. Having a new trainer really instill his style into Joshua. All these things take time. And if someone is willing to offer him a huge amount of money to take that time, for me, he'd be mad not to do it. The fight only becomes bigger if he's the first in line. Presumably he would be, to take on the winner of Usyk and Fury. You'd obviously want it in the contract as well that there'd be no rematch between Usyk and Fury, that he would get the next shot at the Undisputed Championships. Joshua's never been Undisputed Champion, only unified. So he'll either get an all-British showdown with Fury or the rematch that he's going to get anyway with Usyk. And then it's for all the marbles. Plus he'll have more time to readjust his focus, more time to bed in with a new trainer. And he's still a young man, Joshua. He's relatively fresh. I don't see much downside to this. I think if he goes into an immediate rematch with Usyk, I'd make him a real outsider. I'd make him a real underdog. Whereas with another training camp under his belt, with a new trainer, perhaps even with a fight in the interim, that would be a choice to make. You wouldn't want it to be too risky because you wouldn't want him to lose and miss out on the massive payday to come. I would give him a much better chance of beating the Usyk-Fury winner than I give him right now. So I see why this, if it is a real offer, would be attractive to Joshua. But that brings us on to Whyte. And if I was in Whyte's team, I think it's very difficult for him to accept the step-aside money, not least because of public perception. Whyte, despite turning down a shot at Joshua when he was unified champion, also rejecting a couple of eliminators, has still got this kind of view as someone who will fight anyone, anytime, anywhere, and more importantly, someone who's waited, over 1,000 days apparently for his world title shot, of being, WBC #1, albeit not mandatory for all of that time. And I don't think the public would stand up to Whyte taking step-aside money in this case, even if it gives us the undisputed fight that many of us boxing fans want. If Whyte's desperate for his title shot, the same people who are saying, well, he should accept 80-20, which is the purse split that Tyson Fury's team have requested and been granted, at least at the moment, by the WBC, those same people would criticise Whyte if he now walked away and took step-aside cash, even if financially it's probably the better option for him because he'll get a bigger slice of any purse split. And similar to Joshua mandating that he be first in line for the winner of Fury Usyk, if I was on Whyte's team, I would say, yeah, fine, I'll step aside, I'll take a chunk of money, but it's got to be guaranteed that I'll get 30% of the purse split when the fight eventually happens with Fury or Usyk, or 40% or whatever it is they want. Use it as a leverage in a negotiating tactic. But it's still very hard for Whyte to take step-aside money, having, claimed and spoken about how long he's waited for this shot, how much he wants the Fury fight. It seems to be within his grasp now. There's purse bids set for Wednesday. He might not be happy with the split, and I guess that could still change. But those purse bids have been delayed a number of times, presumably because Fury's team are in the background trying to make an Usyk fight and negotiate with Whyte's team to pay him substantial step-aside money in the same way the money offered to Joshua has now been revealed, or at least reported. But it's more difficult for Whyte to walk it back. And also, Whyte's not got the same issues as Joshua. He's not bedding in with a new trainer anymore. He's been with Xavier Miller for a while now. He's coming off a really good run of form. He's beaten a host of kind of fringe or top 10 heavyweights. He doesn't want another fight in between, particularly, because a lot of the fights Whyte has become gruelling affairs, and he doesn't want to risk a shock defeat like the one against Oleksandr Usyk, albeit avenged later on. He's now in the mandatory position. At the moment, he's guaranteed the next shot at Fury. He obviously feels it's a fight he can win. There's not a lot of upside to him for stepping aside, apart from the obvious that he'll get a shot, draws aside, he'll get a shot at all the marbles when he does get his chance. And he might end up fighting Usyk instead of Fury, who style-wise might prove a bit more amenable for him, although that's open to debate. But he's not getting any younger. He's not fresh, particularly. He's had some hard fights. And I think strike while the iron's hot in Whyte's case. You've waited long enough. Don't wither on the vine, or at least any more than you already have. Take the fight now. And Whyte's not someone who tends to care too much for the greater good, if you like, and nor should he. Boxing's a very selfish sport. He should do what's best for him, not necessarily what's best for everyone, despite people wanting to see an undisputed title fight. So to sum up, I think it makes perfect sense for Joshua to take the step-aside money. It would even benefit him with the extra time. But for Whyte, I think you press ahead with your claims, you push as hard as you can to make sure you get your title fight next. And then if you win, make the fight with the Usyk-Joshua winner yourself. And it's still an undisputed title fight, but you've got more power then in negotiations that are to come. But also you give yourself the best possible chance of clearing the first hurdle. But that's what I think. I want to know what you guys think. Maybe have a read of the Telegraph article. I don't think it's behind the paywall, which is good, and it's quite short as well. Have a read of that, see what you think. A lot of conjecture. Nothing's actually been confirmed, but that's what I'm here to do, to speculate. Let me know what you think of either party, what decisions they should make. I'll respond to some of the comments. I'll be back on Thursday for FLEXpectations, 4:30 PM, and then the following Monday, same time, for the next ReFLEXions. Really appreciate you all watching. Please do comment. I like to read them and also respond to some of them. And I'll see you all soon. Cheers.